Shalom, this is Levi Shore. Welcome back to this week of Torah. We're going to talk about something really interesting tonight. We're going to talk about a sign given by Rabbi Yose ben Kisma in the Gemara about a sign that would be right before the coming of Mashiach. And we're going to take a look at some recent geopolitical events, and we're going to try to take different pieces of a jigsaw puzzle, and we're going to try to start putting stuff together. Now, I'm not a Navi or a prophet, so I'm just going to give you guys a lot of sources from the Gemara, and we're going to talk about some current political events, and you guys can put these things together. But it does seem like we're getting closer to the Motz of Mashiach. We're getting closer to the days of Mashiach. And so one thing before we start. So I think it's very important. So as we're living in these more and more, crazy times with like this COVID-19, this coronavirus pandemic, and then events happening all over the world. And 2 days ago, I think it was on August 4th, in Beirut, we saw this horrible explosion. I'm not exactly sure what it is. There's different opinions in the news, like what it is, but it seemed to me, and I'm not a military expert, but it seemed some kind of massively powerful like bomb or explosive that was being stored in the civilian populations. The capital of Lebanon was horrible, and it was right in their capital city, and this massive device went off, or whatever it was, and the area is already like we're going to talk about the increasing tensions. So it says in Sanhedrin 98b, it's something interesting. So the students of Rabbi Yose, they asked him, they said, in like the Chevlei Mashiach, in the Birthpangs of Mashiach, and we're going to talk about what that means exactly, what can a person do to be saved? So he said something interesting. He said there's only two things. He said, Ya'asok b'Torah, involve yourself in Torah, meaning learn the Torah, do the mitzvos of the Torah, and gemilas chasadim, and doing kind things for other people, doing good deeds for other people. So the Maharal, he explained it, and he explained why this is so powerful. And he says that by learning Torah, that's the ultimate good you can do affecting the spiritual worlds, above us. And by doing kind things for other people, it's the ultimate good you can do in the physical world. And this gives a person protection, because you're doing good on a spiritual level and on a physical level, and this is the only thing that will really protect us, according to Rabbi Yose right now in these crazy times. So another thing is, I guess the good news is potentially we're getting closer and closer to the appearance of Mashiach on the world stage, B'ezrat Hashem. But the scary thing to me is, and we're going to talk about some of these sources, it seems like there could be an invasion of Israel possibly coming from like Hezbollah and Iran, and it really, really encouraged people to pray for the safety of the Jewish people living in northern Israel, and there's just a lot of tension that's been building over the last few months and so. And let's talk about the sign of Rabbi Yose ben Kisma. So it's in Masechta Sanhedrin. It's on 98a. And his students are asking him, they're saying, give us a sign before the coming of Mashiach. So one thing he says here, he says that the Mei Ma'aras Pamias Lidam, that the waters of the cave of the Pamias, so that's the source. It's called like Benayas. It's in northern Galil, northern Galilee region of Israel. And it's the source of the Jordan River. He said that that's going to turn into blood. So then, right before he was going to die, it was interesting. He told his students that he wanted them to put his coffin deep into the ground. And he was living, I think, in Iraq at the time. He also lived in Rome, so I'm not sure where he was when he was nifter. But he says, because there will not be a single palm tree in Bavel, in Babylon, which is modern-day Iraq, that to which a horse of the Persians will not be tethered. Meaning there's going to be this, we'll talk about this, there's going to be some kind of invasion of Persia, which is Iran, into Iraq. And then he says that there will not be a single coffin in Eretz Yisrael, in the land of Israel, out of which a horse of Madai will not be eating straw. So Pras and Madai were these two countries that came together to form the Persian Empire. So I think this would be referring to modern-day Iran. And it seemed like potentially there may be an invasion first into Iraq and then into Israel. And we'll talk about all the political tensions that are simmering all over the region. So Next source, when I look at Masechta Sota, there's a brisa in Masechta Sota, and it talks about the signs before the coming of Mashiach. And it's pretty scary because most of this has really come to pass. So it says, Be'ikvos Mashiach chutzpah yiske. So in the footsteps of Mashiach, it says that chutzpah, like insolence, like people are really chutzpahdik, it's going to really increase. People are going to be really chutzpahdik with each other. It says, V'yoker yamir, and there's inflation's going to soar. And we see constantly, every year, the price of everything just keeps going up and up and up. And it says, Hagefen titain pirya v'hayayin b'yoker. And the vine is going to give a lot of grapes, a lot of wine, but wine's going to be very expensive. And we see like these really premier wines, incredibly expensive. Hundreds of dollars for a new bottle of wine, thousands of dollars, and then the premier vintages that people will pay a tremendous amount for wine. And this is how Malchus techafek leminus. And it says the government is going to turn to like heresy. And it's kind of scary because like we see kind of a deterioration of morality in the world. And it's like the government is like turning on their responsibility. It's scary. We see all this like, anti-police, things. And it's like, and without, you need, for society to function, you need the police, you need some kind of law and order. I mean, we can get into politics, but I mean, police should be reformed, but you need some kind of system of justice, and you need law and order, and you need everyone to obey the law, or you can't have a functioning society. And then just the ideas, it's more and more the secular world we're living in, where people are very distant from Hashem. People are very distant from this infinite being, this creator that's created us all and has given us life, and it's becoming more, it's more Hester upon him. Hashem's just more hidden in the world. You don't hear the media. Media doesn't talk about God, everything's just random world events. It's never Hashem that's directing it, according to them. So, and that's the Ein Tochecha, and no one's going to rebuke the government. Even they'll come out with crazier and crazier ideas of apikoursis, of heresy, and no one's rebuking them. So this one I find very confusing. It's the Beis Va'ad Yehiel is Nus, that the study halls or the meeting places will be for immorality. But this is the one that really scares me. It says, V'hagalil Yecharav, and the Galil, the Galilee region of northern Israel, it says will be destroyed. The Gavlan Yishom, and the Gavlan region, which I think is like the Golan region, will be desolated. So some of the signs here, and a lot of these things have happened. It also talks about like people fighting in the family, and the generation will be the face of the dog. But we see a lot of tension in families, a lot of fighting. Even the family, which is like the greatest support system of a person. And nowadays we see like, a lot of person's tension comes from the family, just fighting with members of their family and beyond, like friends, neighbors, work, people they're working with. But the greatest centers of support a person is like, in some ways people are fighting in that system. So it's kind of scary in a way that we see some of these sources are talking about some kind of invasion possibly. Okay, so I don't know exactly what the fallout is going to be from this explosion in Lebanon and Beirut, but it's devastating. It was some kind of massive weapons or weapon or the chemicals that they're making weapons with, and it was just a horrible explosion in the middle of a civilian population, and it was really devastating, and that's going to create an already tense situation. It's going to make everything worse in the Middle East. Now, what's really crazy is, I think it was February 14th, 2005, the Prime Minister of Lebanon, his name was Rafik Hariri, and he was assassinated. And the crazy thing is, on the day of the explosion, there's a special tribunal that's, I think, prosecuting 4 men responsible for the assassination. They were going to come out with the findings, and then that's postponed now because of the explosion. So, just to give you some idea of the tension. So, Lebanon entered into a civil war that basically ran from like 1975 to 1990. So the majority population of Lebanon was Sunni Muslims and Christian, and then there was a minority like Shiite population in the south and in the Bekaa Valley to the east near Syria. Now Syria itself, I think, is Shiite and Shia, and Iran is Shia. So in '79, the Islamic Revolution in Iran turned that from a secular country into an Islamic republic, and I think they also are a Shia. So Iran in 1982, they helped establish this terrorist organization Hezbollah, and also in the 80s the PLO, and I think at the time the PLO was actually exiled from Israel. And I think it was during the Clinton administration when they negotiated that Oslo peace accord that they actually legitimized the PLO and brought them back into Israel, which is still mystifying to me why that all happened. And then the PLO tried to assassinate an Israeli ambassador, Shlomo Argov, in London, and that caused Israeli airstrikes at PLO targets in Lebanon, and then the PLO fired back missiles into Israel, and it led on June 15th, 1982. I think it was Ariel Sharon was prime minister at the time, or he was a general. Maybe he was a general. And in 1982, Israel invaded Beirut, and they got involved in the civil war, and they were there for 82 to 84, and that caused an incredible amount of tension now between Hezbollah and Israel, and then even Lebanon. It's starting to create a tension between the country and Israel. And then I think there was a second Lebanese war. I forgot exactly when, maybe around 2006 or 2004, somewhere around there. And there was all these, it was 4,000 or so or more missiles coming from Lebanon, and then Israel went into Lebanon to fight against Hezbollah and stop the missile attacks. So there's been a tremendous amount of tension between Hezbollah and Israel. Now, if that's not crazy enough, and if that's not chaotic enough, right to the east and the north of Israel is Syria, which is also engaged in a destabilizing civil war. So the head of Syria, Bashar al-Assad, he got into the civil war of his people, and I think that started until March 15th, 2011, until now. And once again, you have tension between the Shia and the Sunnis there, and I think Assad is, I think he's Shia, and it started creating so much tension, and then you started getting Hezbollah came in, Russia and Iran came in, way back when ISIS was involved, the terrorist organization ISIS. And then you had the U.S. come in, and then more recently you had Turkey take some territory from the north. So you have a very chaotic situation right next door in Syria. And then in Iran we have the Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. And recently we've seen massive cyber warfare between Israel and Iran. So I think Iran at some point, they tried a cyber attack against Israel's water system. And then I think Israel attacked their one of their ports through a cyber attack. And then it seems like potentially through cyber attacks, there was explosions at some of Iranian nuclear facilities. So there's an incredible amount of tension between Iran and Israel. And then Iran has soldiers right at the footsteps of northern Israel in Syria. And then Iran also, they started Hezbollah, and they're the main financer of Hezbollah in Lebanon. And you also have Kataib Hezbollah in Iraq. And we saw recently, I think it was in the last year, that the Trump administration, they killed General Soleimani from Iran, and they killed the leader of Kataib Hezbollah. And then very recently, on May 7th, 2020, it was very recent. It was June 25th, 2020. The Iraqi government raided this Kataib Hezbollah base in Dora, in Iraq. So we see tension growing there. Now then there's also tension between the United States and Iran, because the Trump administration doesn't want to allow Iran to create nuclear weapons, and I think Israel also has the same goal, to prevent them from creating nuclear weapons. And you see this massive tensions going on. So it's very scary to see these sources about a potential invasion in northern Israel, and we can see the growing tension. And then I don't know what the fallout from this explosion is going to be. Is there going to be, are they going to try to blame this on Israel and use that as justification? So I don't know. These are some of the pieces. I don't know, I don't know exactly how it's all going to come together. So it's also fascinating. So I'll give you one more piece of the puzzle here. So in Masechta Avodah Zarah on 2b, there's fascinating. The Gemara asks a fascinating question, and it says, like, there was 4 main empires in the history of the world. There was Babylon, then there was Persia, then there was Greece, and then there was Rome. So when Babylon was defeated by Persia, the Babylonian Empire just went away. And when Greece was defeated by the Roman Empire, the Greek Empire became like just part of the Roman Empire. But the Gemara asks the question, and we see it now, why is the Persian Empire still intact? Like, why is it still a player? And we see Iran's becoming more and more powerful on the world stage. So Tosfos, he says something fascinating. He says, Mashiach Machusaihu ad ase Mashiach. That this kingdom of Persia is going to be drawn out until the coming of Mashiach. And it says that in the future, it says Asida Paras Shetipol Biyad Romi. And that Paras, Persia, or modern day Iran, is going to fall into the hands of Rome, which means the powers of the West, so in this case probably means the United States. And it says Hainu Samuk Labias HaMashiach, and this is going to be close to the coming of Mashiach. And then it says in Sanhedrin, in Masechta Sanhedrin, on 98b, it says Asida Malchus Romi Shetip Shod Al Kohalam Tisha Chodashim. That Rome is going to rule the world for 9 months. And this is what's called the Chevlei Mashiach, or the Birthpangs of Mashiach. Because just like a pregnancy takes 9 months, when we see, I think in this case it's going to be America or Europe, some maybe alliance. And when Iran falls to America, they'll rule the world for 9 months, and that will be called the Birthpangs of Mashiach, and then maybe we'll actually see the emergence of a Mashiach. So it seems like world events are starting to shape up, that we're getting close. We see all the tensions there, and it could be that if there was some kind of invasion from Hezbollah and Iran, and maybe Chas v'Shalom even coordinated with like the PLO or Hamas is also supported by Iran, that if there was Chas v'Shalom, this invasion in the Galil region of northern Israel, that could spark events that would lead eventually to more tension, and maybe America, going to war with Iran. So I don't know exactly what's going to happen, but I really feel like we should all pray for the safety of the Jews in northern Israel, and hopefully, let's hope for the good. Let's daven for the good, and may we see Mashiach come in the sweetest way possible, and lead us to better times. Okay, I hope you enjoyed it. Hope to see you back again soon on Sweet and Good Torah.